Citizen Cider is ran by a toxic, misogynistic boys club, plagued by homophobia and sexual harassment, which recently caused 15 plus employees to walk out in the same week. Hey y'all, I'm Johnny Wanzer, and I interviewed 35 current and former employees anonymously about this. All claims are alleged unless specified, but let's get to the tea. The catalyst for this mass exodus was the launch of their new beer brand, Habub. But a toxic work environment has been present for years, perpetuated by the leadership of co-founder, co-owner, and president Justin Heilenbach and his director of operations, Eric Young. The latter more so, but we'll get back to that in a moment. In 2010, after a management team comprised of mostly women successfully launched the brand, cracks started forming in the following years as Justin slowly started to push out these women with intimidation. Described by two former employees as a complete misogynistic sociopath, one former senior manager who helped launch the brand claimed she was brought into one-on-one closed-door meetings where he'd constantly belittle her about her personal life, goals, living standards, image, and personality, unrelated to the job, all based on ignorant perceptions of her. When she'd defend herself, he would label her as difficult and would proceed to make her work life a living hell until she buckled to his demands. A few other employees who also shared the privilege of these special meetings claimed he would hold a baseball bat and swing it around while talking to them. Another employee claims that when they asked for small business advice, he laughed in their face, insinuating that they would never make the $100,000 decisions that he makes daily. After a few years of pushing out these veteran folks, he slowly started replacing them with yes men, emphasis on men, who would proceed to uphold and trickle down his toxic management style to the work culture of the lower employees. This has caused many employees over the years to quit on the spot and explains their years-long super high turnover rate. Both former and current employees describe the management beyond the sexist homophobic descriptions as follows. It's a narcissistic boys club. If you don't complain, they like you. Suggest anything outside their discretion or something they don't like, then you're labeled as trouble. One woman there was once told by them that they are using their personality too much at work when bringing up legitimate concerns. On one occasion, a former employee was told, "Women lives don't matter. You should keep your mouth shut and do what you're told." Another employer recalled an incident where one of these guys was shouting extremely sexist things to the entire backhouse staff, including, but not limited to, how much of a bitch a woman he used to work for was. In fact, one of the members of his team sexually harassed a server and called her a bitch in front of everybody when she stood up for herself. Upper management was reluctant to fire him. Oh, and speaking of women, there's currently only one in a senior management position. Multiple other employees report that the staff is overworked, undervalued, underpaid, and overpromised in the pursuits of false upward mobility and financial promises that the management eventually gaslights their way out of. Another told me of the habit management has of taking paid time off away from multiple employees at different times without asking. When one employee spoke up to ask for a raise she was promised a year ago, and also about feeling like she was being treated unfairly, management disciplined her with a probationary document that basically said they were being unprofessional for not agreeing with them, and wasn't allowed to talk to other employees about what was going on. If she followed these rules, she'd get her raise. Two other employees told me that when they asked for late raises too, they were met with how much experience they were gaining, and to be thankful for the opportunity and privilege they were given. The consensus among the staff is, if you stand up for yourself for being harassed, you're forced out of your position. Speaking of complaints, you can only go to HR if management deems it reasonable to talk to them. More on the HR department in a moment. This toxicity has extended beyond just their own employees though. One waitress from another brewery told me about a story where she waited on the management team and their beverage rep. While waiting on them, she mentioned she was in school for filmmaking. The rep then asked to make a movie with me, which then prompted everybody else to jump in, saying things like, "Cast me in a movie with just the two of us. Meet me on the casting couch, baby. I bet you look good under lights. You can direct me to do anything, baby." It got so out of hand that another male customer had to physically step in to shield her, to which they physically threatened him. Then they refused to leave after the female manager asked them to, demanding to speak with a man, yelling about how important they were and how they shouldn't be treated like this. Then they returned after closing, still angry, demanding to speak to the head chef, the only man who was in the building that didn't even witness the situation. It was only when the male owner of the brewery called them and threatened to cancel all business with them that they apologized. Another prominent person in the restaurant industry claimed she was so uncomfortable around management at the Habub launch party that she pulled all Citizens products. A party and a launch I am getting to, but we must focus on the main instigator, responsible for a majority of these toxic behaviors, Eric Young, Director of Operations. Besides the many horror stories I received about this man, I also had about 7 former coworkers from different jobs reach out to me as well, describing the man as a psychotic narcissistic predator, an arrogant prick, the most disgusting piece of human flesh I've ever met, and he's a pig at best. One former coworker described him as a bully unless you're a man or a hot woman under 30. This person and a bunch of coworkers tried to form together to report him to Ben & Jerry's, but he was never reprimanded, as apparently he was good buddies with the folks in HR. HR. Others didn't report him because they were straight up afraid to get fired. In fact, he had bullied one former subordinate so much that she, in her own words, was absolutely terrified of him and would drive to work nauseous and shaking every day. It got to the point where HR pulled one of her coworkers in for questions because other workers reported seeing multiple incidences between them. When she was questioned about it though, she lied because she was scared of how he would take it out on her. This former subordinate had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, and Eric would try to take advantage of this fragility. He'd do things like try to get her to break up with her new boyfriend, who also worked there, or would yell at her even if she was looking at her boyfriend, then reprimand her by giving her extra trivial work to do outside of her job when she was already busy, when other workers, including himself, were free to do the task. Well, eventually he brought over these toxic tendencies, transforming the culture in a matter of a year. Former Citizens employees have stated he is the driving force behind the current toxic work culture, and Justin supports it. Employees claim Eric, a married father by the way, allegedly hits on employees and uses intimidation to get what he wants. When he's not constantly complaining about his bitch of a wife who's mean to him in front of everybody, he actively takes this frustration out by targeting and fixating on treating women like crap. One applicant to the job was told specifically by HR not to make comments about previous work scenarios with Eric. Employees also claim he openly talks shit about lower level employees to other lower level employees, right in the open for everybody to hear. Employees say he's not cool to you if you aren't a straight white male that likes to get drunk with him after work. Let's get to the catalyst of this video's existence, the launch of Habub beer. So this June, Citizen Cider was gearing up to launch their brand new beer product with Eric at the helm of running the brand. He made the front of house employees, some of them underage women, wear shirts during their work shifts with Habub marketing slogans that said keep it tight, keep it light, get plowed, and approved for hooking up. When women spoke up about not wanting to be walking billboards to encourage customers to sexually harass them, he told them to stop having a bad attitude and to wear the shirts or you'll be fired for not showing brand loyalty. What's funny about these women's fears was Eric allegedly had drunkenly asked a former employee on many occasions if she kept it trim and if that's why she was always asking for it. When two non-binary employees refused to wear them on launch day, they were straight up fired. Speaking of LGBTQ plus folk, that month they were gearing up to launch in June was Pride Month. Habub was advertised on a chalkboard, so employees, a lot of them part of that community, put up Pride next to the brand on the chalkboard. Eric lost his mind and started screaming after seeing this, allegedly saying, "I don't want that shit associated with my brand," and tried to get the flags taken down. The GM at the time stood up to him and the flag stayed, but the target was painted on her back. She felt so bad for the staff that on launch day, she approved employees to grab blank shirts and iron on the Habub logo with no slogans. Eric and the management flipped out, fired her, and then threatened to fire most of the middle management that day. After 2 months of dealing all this, 15 members of middle management and the regular staff banded together and walked out on August 25th with about 5 more employees doing the same throughout the week. That's about 25 to 30% of the staff. Speaking of losing staff, let's talk about how Justin fired HR right before the launch party when the controversy was heating up and replaced it with his wife Tara, who took down and gave the following month's HR complaints directly to Justin, who then weaponized them against these employees complaining. But if you ask her, she'll probably tell you what she told the remaining staff in a meeting after the walkout, saying she wasn't aware of any Habub problems. Folks are blowing these out of proportion, and it's all just gossip. In fact, Citizens has a record of alleged claims against their work conditions in multiple regards. Last February, when it was -30 out, management made employees work with liquids outside with no PPE in the dark, which led to one employee getting frostbite and not sent home. Another employee sliced a chunk of their thumb off on their dominant hand while bottling glitter for their glitter all-times. After returning from urgent care, they kept working at the pace they could, but were brought into HR days after and got in trouble for going too slow. This summer, mid-management wanted to put in air regulations for the pub for bad air quality as a result of the Canadian wildfires. The patio and pub walls are completely open to the outside, but management ignored them. The air quality index was so bad one day, the news was telling folks not to go outside for more than 15 minutes. All staff was outside for 6+ hours, felt sick, and were spitting black. And when they complained about this, upper management turned a blind eye, like they have to the black mold that's been growing in their walk-in fridge for some time now. Safety issues aren't the only alleged claims though. Many former production employees tell me Eric puts quantity over quality in production, and that he's the main driver behind all cost-cutting techniques. What techniques, you ask? One former production worker claims that allegedly most of their ingredients aren't even local anymore, although they still advertise this. They do say, however, that they're still using the dirty, polluted Burlington water, so that's local. In fact, they claim that allegedly most of the cider is made from apple concentrate to save money. Another claim they allegedly take old, expired product and mix it in with new product to also save money. And finally, if you taste Habub beer like I did in person, which made a ton of the employees incredibly uncomfortable. They claim there's a faint taste of apples, which I immediately picked up on. The problem is, there's no apples in the ingredients. Well, one former employee claims that allegedly they brew it in the same tanks as the cider. If this is true, this would make their cider's claims of being gluten-free false. But again, people, I'd like to remind you, for legal reasons, this is all alleged, but it is coming from verified former employees who used to work in production. So take that as you will. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was true, because product sales for the cider have been down the past couple years, which is why Habub, a light beer, came into existence in the first place. I don't know, if you're hurting for money, how come citizens donated money to Miro's Partnership for Burlington's Future PAC while advocating known crook Don Sinek? How much did those souped up company bought trucks Eric and Justin drive cost? Maybe we can ask the other co-owners, Chris and Brian, although apparently they've been hands-off with the business for many years, oblivious to all of this happening. But man, it would be unfortunate if any inspector audited them for any of this. I wonder what Whole Foods, Hannaford's, and Price Chopper would think of this. You know, companies that recently signed up to sell their non-alcoholic line, which was a big win for the company. I wonder what they would do. So, in conclusion, that's the real story. That's the story 7 Days didn't have the balls to publish, the decency to publish. That's the story these folks deserve to have. Oh, and go read that article if you haven't. If you want to see abysmal journalism succumb to the death grips of capitalism and let down victims in the process. Oh, and then go read the editorial follow-up from the owner, indirectly invalidating me and my platform. But, hey look, Ma, I made the newspaper again. In terms of citizens though, don't support them. Tell your bars and local stores to stop carrying their product. It's clear they aren't willing to change, so don't give them yours. They still have yet to put out a public apology. They aren't even willing to acknowledge it. If you're a professional that can help these employees or win some lawsuits, please reach out. And if nothing else, share this video. I never ask you guys to share a video, but please, if you can share any one of my videos, share this one. I probably just set myself up for a bunch of lawsuits I can't afford to fight, but fuck it. What do I know? I'm just trying to be a good citizen. That's her motto, by the way. Yeah, I know. At least I didn't fucking swear this whole time, huh? Now old people can take me seriously. Although, that probably just fucked it up. Nothing like some rotten apples, huh? Anyways, bye-bye.